Okay, so we're recording. So we are live, and I believe this is our 27th projector call. And it's great to have Sarah as my guest here. Sarah Yam is in London, and she's a 1-3 projector with split definition, splenic authority, and she's on the right angle cross of tension. Now, a little bit about Sarah. She's born in Hong Kong, studied in London for the last 6 years, and she now lives in London. She's the co-founder of Red Digital, which is a Chinese digital marketing agency which helps Western companies to reach Chinese audiences. So that's pretty interesting work, and I imagine that's something that's going quite, it must be at this sort of time of our cultures, must be quite a big area of growth.
So it's because I'm Chinese, so that's why that kind of resonate partly to me, myself, and my roots, as you call it. So that's why I have been doing this for like 5 years now, and this call, I feel like I would like to. It's a really good chance to share a bit about the personal side of me. Apart from what I do, to share as who I am, like as a person. So it was great that have the opportunity to talk to you guys, and it was
super cool.
Yeah.
Well, I guess human design is a great tool for that, isn't it? To look at who we really are, and So whenabouts did you discover human design? Were you already in London, or was it longer ago? Like, is it a recent thing for you? How long have you been in the experiment?
So I discovered human design after I went to London study. I think all after. I think I remember there's a year that I returned back to Hong Kong because there's some issue with my husband visa. So that's why there are some like it was because my husband moved to UK a long while and was sorting out the visa, and then when I got back to Hong Kong, there was a time of a change and transformation, and all at a sudden I was trying to find something, I was trying to search something, I was trying to figure out something, I was just trying to make sense of everything happening to me in the past and at the present moment. I remember me and my friend went to a bookstore in Hong Kong, and I find a book, I don't know what book it is, but that kind of caught my attention. That book, it is in Chinese, but then, in human design was translated in Chinese. And then I just picked it up and read it, and I got very interested, and I bought a book back home, and there was during the Chinese New Year, so it was like Christmas time, as it was Christmas time going back. And that's why I was trying to find out what it is about. And the more I read it, the more I was like just trying to just trying to make sense of who I am, or trying to see, I was skeptical before, like to see, like, is it real and everything like that. But I was just trying to remember the past and how I feel, and I got to make sense about it. So I think that was.
So what were the things? So you got the book. At some point, I guess you looked up your chart online.
Yeah, I got my chart online.
Right, and so you're reading about it, about being a projector, about being a splenic projector, 1-3. What were the things that you read that resonated the most strongly? What were the things that really were like, wow, this explains so much?
Yeah. Actually, there are several things. So first, as 1-3, that is a trial and error. Especially the free line. I think it quite resonate to me because I was just trying to try something out, and unlike my brother who are like 2-4 or 4-2 or whatever. He was like really like safe, like I just do this, I'm the accountant, that's it, like really straightforward, like pretty much my life is set in stone. But for me, because there was some, not conflict, but, in the Chinese family context, everyone, like your mom and your dad will be like, so like, are you weird? Like, sort of like different from each other. So there was like a lot of questions on my mind, like why am I so different from my brother? Is it I'm a weird like that? There was always like, and also I'm a female as well. So I know that in the Western context is slightly different. So that's why the freelance really works for me. I was just trying to do different things. He followed a really traditional career. Like go to like really fixed sense of career, like for example civil servant, like that like. And he was saying that I'm not like him and I'm weird, and that is it. And the first line also resonated to me. I think I really want to investigate, really think about things really deep. That's why I got my master degree in digital marketing, social media, whatever. And then I picked an area that I specialize in it, and got fascinated about it, and trying to go really deep about it. So I also think that it was quite deep because it was slightly different from other people that I met, like other colleagues or other person. They're not like that. They're more like, for example, one of my friends, she's PL, she's like social butterfly, like she's not very that. So I was trying to make sense of everything around me, like the person, the things, why I'm drawn.
It's so interesting as well, because how you're describing it is very much sounds like an investigator, because you're looking at, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because you've got, I mean, how far in age are you different from your brother? What's the age difference?
My brother was actually smaller than me. So yeah. I'm, I think maybe 3 years, 2 years smaller than me. So that's why, as a sister, in a Chinese family context, like you like are responsible for certain things or whatever. You have to as more mature. But as if all my parents think that he's more mature than me, as if I was trying to try all different things.
So you were the firstborn and you were the big sister, and so would you be comfortable for us to say the conditioning would be to say that you should be responsible, you should be kind of taking a straight line career path or something like that would be the expectation from cultural and family upbringing? Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, it is very fair to say. It is a very accurate description indeed, actually, in a Chinese context or Asian context or whatever Asian context, like the family sort of like, because that is the safest part, they don't need to worry about you, all this, like you don't mess up, and that was the safest. So that's why a lot of parents, they want their kids to follow the safest part, just whatever it is. Yeah. So I guess that was.
I know with the Chinese astrology, like I've got a friend who lived in Hong Kong, and she's a fire horse by the Chinese astrology. And she was saying that kind of the message that she got was that if you're a horse as a woman, it's kind of like you're considered to be too much of a handful, especially as a fire horse. So it's kind of like sort of considered a bit unlucky for a woman to be a fire horse or something like that.
I heard something like horse is like running, like and not more like masculine energy type for horse. So that consider a little bit out of the context, but for Western world, maybe in UK or in America, it's sort of like a normal, a lot of women leaderships, are females. But I think for Asian, that overall cultural context, the television, the magazine, the peers, and all
the messages from society.
Yeah, all these messages, like preconditioned messages, start to make you feel that you're weird or whatever.
Okay. So especially as a third line, right? Because we know that the shadow side of the third line is to be a perfectionist. I'm a 3-5. So for me, I used to be a perfectionist, so getting things right all of the time is very much in our shadow for a third line, because we're supposed to be making mistakes or trying different things to find out what works.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. So the third line resonate to me a whole lot, and especially also the projector. This element also resonate me a lot, because sometimes I try to initiate things. I want to make things happen. Sometimes I want to try things, but sometimes it doesn't happen. I got frustrated and all that, and so. But then I try to accept that, like, and try to accept that, well, it might not, shouldn't be pushing too hard to yourself, and all that, and try to slow
So were you
down.
meeting a lot of resistance when you were trying to make things happen or initiate, or
Resistance or rejections, or whether you've got bitterness, you got frustrated. So sometimes you just take a slower approach, like just slow things down, just try to step by step, and like trusting that things will happen in the right way. Like you don't need to push that hard for things. So that was also what I learned, and just trying to make sense of it as well.
Yeah, so being a projector, not initiating,
Mm.
made sense.
Yeah.
Okay, and so how about the? Are you familiar with the idea that we're not here to work as projectors? That we don't have consistent life force energy like a generator does. How was that? Because my perception of the Chinese cultures is quite hard work and quite conscientious.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That is like, I can talk a really long topic about that. Like, I mean, even for my family, for the whole world society, for peers, and I think there's different layers of precondition in my life. I'm not sure why, but like in my mind, my family, my father, my mom, they're all generators. My brothers are generators. I'm the only one who are projectors. So
Right.
it was a weird feeling, like
Yeah.
really weird feeling about that. Like their concept, like their feeling towards me, as if I was weird, somehow out of the place, kind of.
I think we
So
are weird in a generator world. I have the same thing. Both my parents and all three of my brothers are manifesting generators.
yeah.
So I am weird in my family.
Yes. So that's why I think we kind of understand each other, in that aspect. So that's why my father tell me that you need to work hard, otherwise you can't, if you're old, like, you'll be miserable, and like that kind of concept precondition in my mind, what was a child. Even right now, like just work, and even though not questioning like whether it works or not, or sometimes I just start to question, does that approach really works, or does that really works? Just try to questioning it rather than just blindly like precondition doing certain thing, as if there was like a time clock, like ready, you need to do this, like ready, you need to do that. Like that was just trying to, trying to push away.
Yeah,
Yeah, trying to. It was like that. It was
yeah,
like that really in my family,
yeah.
and
Your generator, it's going to make sense that you follow a timetable. You're working with the other generators, and you don't need to try a whole load of things because this is just what you do. And of course, as a projector, if you're here to be a guide and
yeah,
you're here to try and find out what works and what doesn't work and
exactly, yeah,
the energy. I mean, I don't know about you, but I always have this feeling inside myself as a projector of if I do this, I take this action, and then this result happens. And my wisdom is always looking to see, like, am I getting energy back? Am I getting an energy return for what I put in? Am I getting at least as much back out? And I can feel that. So for me to just do something because I'm supposed to do it, it's like, I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. It's not working.
yeah, exactly. I also have the same feeling as well. sometimes you kind of feel that, you know, does it work? Like, you know, like I just, sometimes I feel like it doesn't feel like it, you know, and if, you know, and if it is like my mom or my father, they'll be like, why are you not doing it? Or like, you know, that's the sort of thing. And sometimes that precondition, like as if there's a little voice, is that, you know, like, oh, you just need to do it a part of your job and, you know, your life and all that, and trying hard to decondition and tell myself that's okay with it. Like, so that is the things that I'm trying right now, like after learning human design, and still trying to avoid that preconditioned state.
Yeah. Wow, that's quite the journey. So I guess what you're saying is before human design, you sort of were a bit like, something's not quite right here. This doesn't quite, you know, you were starting to maybe question the conditioning.
Yeah, exactly. Before human design, exactly. It's just trying to make
could maybe explain a bit more of like, actually, because this is the question, isn't it? If we are all, you know, if we all come into the same conditioning, you know, you're born 2 or 3 years apart from your brother with presumably the same messages or similar messages from your parents, maybe different because you're a girl and he's a boy, but then you and him turn out so differently. I think a lot of people can resonate with that because, you know, we look at siblings, brothers and sisters, and we can see, you know, we grew up with the same parents, but you know, we have some things that are the same, but we're totally different. And
exactly.
That's where human design with the science of differentiation can help us to map out some of those things and to then start to see, oh, maybe this is why we have such a different experience.
Yeah, exactly. That's really explain why sometimes my brother think that I'm weird, like, you know, and because why not, you know, work for a real job or whatever things that like you're like that imposed to me. And I think that was really a relief and really trusting that then whatever happens or whenever, you know, there is some sort of reason and all that, doesn't necessarily like need to be like be so heavy to myself. I think that is more like a relief and a reason that part of it is part of what it is.
So did you resonate with, and Raluca's just saying that she really resonates with feeling totally different to her brother who's a manifestor. So do you, you know, with human design, obviously we start with the not self. So we're like, okay, if we can, so here we are, then there's all this conditioning that makes us do certain things. Like, you know, the conditioning for you would be obviously to, you know, work hard, do what you're told to do without questioning it, without trying different ways. Apart from what you've already mentioned, what else did you notice? Like, what else did you look at and say, oh, that's my not self, or, you know, like, what else was there from human design that made sense in that?
I think also splenic. I'm a splenic projector, so sometimes I can make decision like snap, like, you know, really quick.
You know,
like, so it's kind of weird, you know, for my mom, because sometimes he will like, why are you doing this just all at a sudden? She was challenging me, like when I was born and whatever, even still maybe university, maybe even still like when I'm 25 or 26, she is still trying to questioning it, like as if it was weird or whatever. And so I think, and I look at her graph, and I think my father and my mother, they're still maybe emotional or whatever, it's quite different. And I'm really like spontaneous. So I was trying to understand that, okay, it's part of me. Like, okay, I can do it on the flow. I don't need to really plan a lot in my mind, like exactly what time I have to do one certain things. 12:30 I have to eat lunch, you know, 6:30 I have to do this, like really strict like that. So that was preconditioned. and that was like made me can't breathe. And so I'm just trying to trusting that, okay, you know, there's, when it happens, it's just very naturally like, okay, I'll feel like I'll eat when I feel like it, you know, I'll do that when I think that it's need to do, and all that. It was as if I don't need to be told that. So I think that was something that resonated with me a lot.
You think it's a thing of being being a projector, being a splenic projector, that we don't need to think things through, or that, you know, we don't have to have it all structured and planned. I wonder sometimes if for generators it's very healthy, maybe it's healthy for a generator to have a rhythm with their sacral, you know, if they, you know how in a city has a rhythm, so it's kind of like, you know, 8 o'clock in the morning, everyone gets in the cars or gets on the transport to go to work, and then like, you know, and then until 6 or 7, and it's like everyone's working, and then it kind of, and I don't know about you, but I sometimes feel really energized like after midnight when everyone's gone to bed. It's kind of like peaceful and calm.
Understood.
I'm like, okay, now I can kind of come out of hiding and sort of see what's going on.
Yeah, I understand. I also feel like sometime like that as well. What you said, like, you feel like, you know, all this peace and calm after, you know, after when everyone's gone. And I also feel sometimes like that. Like I feel my mind just like slow down. Like I don't have all these chatter in my head, you know, oh, you're gonna wake up, you need to do work, oh, you need to get this thing running, all these errands, like, you know, all these things. It was just automatically just like pushing you to do certain things as it was part of the conditioning. And I also realized that for myself that, you know, after like, you know, 11 or like 12 or in the morning, like 6 a.m. or 6:30, that was really the quiet moment, like, you know, as if my mind is clear, you know, I was more energetic, and that I have this flow of creativity and inspirations, and that I also feel the same thing somehow. Yeah, it was it couldn't be forcing it somehow. When I try to force some certain thing to happen, I really feel heavy for myself, like as if it was like a burden or whatever. And sometimes if I kind of maybe relax a little bit, and it kind of like naturally kind of happen, because if something is going to happen, it will happen in a way that it will eventually happen. It was very funny that when I was trying to do some presentation for some training materials, and that, you know, the moment when I try to let go of not forcing it, you know, like when I was unstuck, right? You don't need to, like when you're doing some PowerPoint presentation, and I was just like stop a while. I was tired. I was really tired at night, and I was trying to watch a documentary of things. It was very inspiring, and that kind of flow, that kind of juice just come up, and suddenly I know what to do. Like, so I think that I was trying to still like getting this rhythm, or trying to see what works in my life. Put it that way.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? If you have the sacral defined, if you're a generator, then it's kind of like, you know, it's there, it's reliable, it's consistent. And if you've got to get a PowerPoint presentation done, it makes sense that you sit there for 8 hours and you work away at it, and you do it. Let's pull your chart up, because what you were, is that coming through okay, Sarah? Can you see it?
I couldn't see it yet, but
it should be coming through. It might take a second or two. So what you were describing to me really sounds like, you know, what you were describing earlier about just thinking all of these thoughts. Now we know, of course, that mostly, you know, any kind of thinking is going to be the mind. You know, it's the mind working away, is the not self.
Mm-hmm.
Who we are is in the body, not the mind. So when you were describing that, that was a really beautiful bit of awareness of, and it felt very much, especially like the open head center. And then this thing of, you know, needing to be doing something at a certain time feels to me like the undefined sacral center, you know, that not knowing when enough's enough, like feeling like we're supposed to do something when there's actually no energy there. So that really makes a lot of sense. Yeah, Raluca, if you could do that, that would be great. I'll stop it from here. Maybe my internet's not powerful enough for the chat to come through. So we can pull that through.
Do you have that sense of feeling yourself, or is it like I'm weird, or do you have some sort of
well, in my opinion,
like that, like, you know, like
so.
nothing, it doesn't work.
But what was the question about? You were asking about some feeling that you had. Could you
I mean, like, do you have similar experiences? Like sometimes you feel like forcing it doesn't work, or like you mean like, you know, the enough feeling.
Not enough kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the experience today actually where you know, I've taken some time for myself, and at the same time, I want to create something that's valuable. So I have like I can feel there's this kind of course that wants to come through me, which is a basic course for projectors to help them to move from bitterness to success, just with the very, very simple things. And so, you know, there's still a part of my mind saying, oh, I should be creating this course. Yeah. But for me, I find that creativity comes when it comes, and it's all about timing. So, you know, I've been having some days where I do nothing, and in my coaching, I call it having a fuck it day, where you just think, well, fuck it, I'm not going to force it. It's like my way of saying, how do I know when enough's enough? And then I spoke with Raluca like 3 hours ago, and we talked a little bit about a few things. And after that conversation, I was really energized, and I just had this really clear kind of just clarity come through, where I felt that I could just have this clear direction to be able to see what needs to be done. And, you know, it doesn't take me like 8 hours to do it. It's just like can happen in 1 hour, 2 hours. And I felt like the energy was unblocked, and that there was, you know, just some energy just coming through me. But for me, it's not predictable. I don't know when it's going to be. Like I have defined will, same as you, so I can commit to finishing things off. But sometimes I just, yeah, even that's exhausting. It's just like, hey, I just wait.
It's exhausting. Yeah, I also feel sometimes it's exhausting as well. Like, yes, if it was really heavy kind of burden, and so I don't really enjoy it, but just forcing it, trying to make it happen, and you feel really that sense of kind of thing, and so that's why I think human design, and sometimes it's just so important that allow me to really just contemplate a little bit, you know, like just to pause a little bit, even like a minute or second, just try to wait a minute, you know.
I think, Sarah, I think it's such a powerful thing to be aware of, like, when is there energy that feels like I'm surfing on a wave, you know, like that feeling where, like, I'm learning to ride a special kind of board with my kite at the moment on the waves, and then the wind and the waves pick me up, and it's just like, whee, and there's no energy, and it just goes. And then other times there's not enough wind, or it's not right, or I'm struggling and trying to make it happen. And I feel it's just such a powerful thing to be able to feel the difference.
Exactly. Yeah, to be able to feel the differences. I think that it's sort of like a wisdom, you know. Sometimes we feel that, you know, that's not happening, like really not happening. So there's no way to force it. But sometimes when you know that feeling, you know, that's happening. That's like snap. That is really a thing, you know, like really precious thing.
Yeah, it's like, I'm catching a wave, you know, and it's joyful, and it's kind of like, you know, I hear a lot of projectors saying, oh, I've got no energy or something, and I don't think that's true necessarily. I feel like, you know, if we're trying too hard, we might be getting exhausted as projectors. But and of course, there's a lot of deconditioning. So whatever someone's experiencing is correct. But I do think that naturally as projectors, we do have times when we have energy.
Yeah, exactly. So right now, I guess my learning point is just not trying so hard to try not to be so hard on myself, like and to have a more high sense of awareness, like, you know, you kind of like just ask yourself, like, wait a minute, like what are you doing, like, is it happening and all that, and are you exhausted, and try to have and also try and error experimenting, you know, as a 1-3 and see how it works. So I guess that's just trying to follow that rhythm, and also be trusting and positive about it. That I just some of the journey, what I have learned and experiment myself and just conclude certain things.
I mean, you sound really clear talking to me now. You sound really clear, like you can feel the difference when it's effortless or when you're forcing it,
Exactly.
and when it's exhausting. And of course, you know, just because we discover human design, those conditioning forces are still very strong. You know, if we spent the first 20 years of our life, you know, I started to notice in my early 20s that I sometimes just needed to sleep a whole week, or, you know, and then other weeks I had much more energy. And my dad used to say to me that it was like the worst thing in the world to have a sleep in the daytime. And of course, like, you know, now I like, if I need to sleep in the day, and I think a lot of projectors will identify with that, you know, like, hey, fuck it, I'm going to have a rest. There's no energy. Why would I force it? So, and even now, there's still like this little, because I don't know about you, but I feel good when I feel like I'm making some difference in the world. And I think you're right. It takes wisdom to accept that. You know, I think part of the hard thing about being a projector is we do not know when we're going to be inspired, or we don't know when we're going to have.
Yeah, we don't know. Yeah.
It comes and goes. So that's tricky.
Yeah, that's I also agree that's tricky, but I feel that maybe when you're relaxed, your body, you're not like tense or whatever, because I have that tension, you know, my 39, you don't have that line of, obviously, you know, 30 and 39. I'm not sure, is it about tension or my body getting tense up or whatever.
You've got the cross of tension, haven't you? You've got the 38 and the 39.
Yeah, I got the tension.
21 and the 48.
Yeah.
Maybe we can just have a little look at your incarnation cross. Maybe, Raluca, can you put the view on the incarnation cross? So we're going to look at those 4 gates. So the 38 and the 39 are in black. I have the 38 and the 39 as well.
Oh, okay.
And then you also have there the 21 and the 48. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about those gates. I know all 4 of them actually, as it happens. So yeah, the 28, sorry, the 38 and the 39 are both on the root. They're both in the individual circuit. And they're off to either side, and they match up with each other. And they're both what we call death gates. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, Sarah, but...
Not quite sure. Like, really, you mean like going really depth, like really, like, you know, like researching a lot of things, questioning a lot, going really deep?
Yeah, I mean, the 38 is the fighter, and the 39 is the gate of provocation. So the 38 is about standing up for yourself, and it's like fighting your corner, standing your ground, not being fucked over, not being walked over, not having someone else, you know, make you do something that you don't want to do. It's like, no, this is what's true for me. It can be very stubborn. So that's the 38. Opposition, the gate of the fighter. Now, the 39 is the gate of provocation. And the gate of provocation, the gate that matches up on the other side, the 55, is the gate of the spirit. So the 39 is designed to provoke the other person. And it's like that can be very welcome. There can be a lot of growth from that if the other person is open to it. Or it can be the kind of thing that the other person, like I had an example with a guy who's got the gate 55, and we had sort of a bit of a disagreement, and we left each other a few messages, and I left him a message where I just felt like I was being really honest with him. And he basically left me a message saying, oh, I deleted that message. I didn't listen to it. I don't want to listen to it. I don't need to listen to it. And
like it's rejecting, pretty much just like blocking it, kind of like that.
Yeah, I guess what I realize is that my provocation is not welcomed by him. Like, and he's someone who considers himself very spiritual. So for me, the 39 is a polarizing gate. It's either going to push people away or draw people towards us. So the people that get the value from us, that come back for more and say, oh, actually, that was really, you know, that might have been difficult to hear, but I got a lot of value from it. They can come back and they're grateful. But the people that don't want to hear it, they're like, you know, I don't want to hear what you've got to say.
Yeah.
So it polarizes people. Now, the thing about both of those gates being death gates is that they're not designed to be watching what's happening. You know, if you're fighting your corner and you're like, you know, your energy has to say, no, fuck off. You know, I don't want to do that, or I'm not doing that, or that's not right for me, or you know, just saying no. It's not it's not appropriate to be seeing how it is for the other person.
Yeah. It's
not like, oh, is the other person okay, or are they upset, or something. No, it's there to fight and stick up for you. And the same with the gate 39. It's not there to say, oh, is this other person happy that I'm provoking them? Is it working? Is the provocation correct? Do they like me? Am I being rejected? All of those things, we have to be 100% just true to ourselves.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's interesting. Soon after I discovered this, I was actually thrown out of one of the Facebook groups. And it was very interesting because I just realized that I was kind of given an ultimatum that said kind of, you know, you need to apologize or you're going to get thrown out of the group. It was sort of like that. I was just like, hey, it was true, you know, it's true. So how can I apologize? It's just my design. So this is a bit about the death gates. They're designed to be very individual, very much just in the truth of what's moving from the root, and not needing, you know, to be liked, or not needing to be right, or not needing to be, just to be true. And I have the same as you. I have the 38 in a channel going up, the channel of the struggle going up to the spleen. And then I have the hanging gate on the 39 there. So that's my experience anyway.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. Your experience, for my experience, is slightly different in a different cultural context. As you know, it's in Asian society. In a Chinese society, basically it is really like weird, like taboo or whatever, called like a red sign or whatever, fire or whatever, very dangerous thing. So that's why part of the reason I when I moved to UK, a bit westernized, is slightly different, but for Chinese culture is slightly like you know, you have to say yes, so for certain things you can't say it so directly, you know, you're gonna be polite to people, still try to whatever, find some ways, you know, you can't be so strict. And that really condition in a childhood,
Mm.
in a society, in your peers, everywhere, basically. It's actually everywhere, you know. So very, I can say, is even harder as a woman, as a Chinese woman, you know, in a Chinese society. I think that is really hard. And for someone carrying this is not really easy. And I have a lot of experiences about it. But I was trying to also learn how to, you know, when I trying to say certain thing or fight for a certain thing, and try to think about the other person, what they feel is, and when I try to say it not so directly, but in a more you can in a way that make people feel that it's still genuine, like it's in a way that I'm trying to speak something that is true, and I hope that you appreciate it. I hope that you can consider my thoughts and see what we can discuss, or have some mutual discussions, or I was just trying to soften it up
You
a
sound a
little
lot
bit.
more tactful than me, so that's great.
It's quite, it's, yeah, I was trying to, because I know that in a Chinese society, like, if I'm not going to work like that way, it is really hard. And especially I'm a female, and that was really frightening, you know, as a gender, in a more gender role, because in a female, supposedly you shouldn't be like that, like a bitch or whatever we call it. And otherwise people think that, oh, you're too bitchy, you know, like that works. And so, because in a female context, in a business, you know, you like, there's still some gender stereotype happening even right now, that you are expected not to cross certain line, and it was certain unspoken rule that happening. And so that's why I have to be softening up a little bit. Otherwise, then I think it kind of like a mess up, or whatever. But still, I feel that sometimes people, as you say, they don't accept that, you know, they don't hear it, and they kind of like reject it, and so I think we're just trying to let go of that.
There are a couple of interesting keynotes on your gate 39. So gate 39 is your sun gate, as you know, but you also have it with your Mercury, right? So you have 39.1 for your sun and 39.4 for your Mercury. Now, the first line with sun talks about, the keynote talks about disengagement, with an accompanying indecision as to when to re-engage, the refusal to confront obstacles without the capacity to know when to engage. The indecision is also a provocation. So this is in detriment. So it's the first line is about disengagement. So it's all about, the way I read that is, it's about knowing. The higher form of it is knowing when to engage and when to disengage. So, you know, it's like, I would imagine that with provocation, the timing is key, you know, to provoke the right person at the right time, but knowing when to disengage.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's so the shadow of it is the indecision. And maybe your splenic authority can help you there to know when it's the right time. And maybe the spleen just says, no, zip it for this particular moment with this particular person.
Yeah.
The indecision is also a provocation. So sometimes other people can get wound up, can get like pissed off by the fact that you're not being decisive. And then the fourth line is temperance. Now, it's careful evaluation and assessment before taking action. And that actually fits with your investigator, with your first line, but it's the detriment on the 39.4 is the faulty belief that willpower alone can overcome any obstacle regardless of circumstances. The energy to provoke that ignores circumstances. So it sounds to me as though it's like it's using your energy wisely with correct timing, with the correct person in the correct place, that the provocation is well timed.
Yeah.
But through your instinct, not by thinking about it.
Yeah, I think instinct, that you feel like sometime, I think maybe that's not the moment yet, maybe that's not cooked up at that moment. Yeah, so let's just wait, not pushing too hard, otherwise that people kind of back off or feel annoyed because it's not at the right time yet, because people are still need to think or whatever way it is. And I still, sometimes I can kind of feel like it, and I don't really want to be that disruptive, right? I mean, like, that's not really the whole point of it, because the whole point is just trying to see how to make it happen. I mean, and so sometimes so that's why we'll be like waiting at the right moment. I'll say the right things and the right people in the right way, but using also the energy, using all this sort of intuition, energy, words to just try to express things that you think that you have certain thoughts and thought, you know, you express that you have thought about it, and that's what you think, and that's what you kind of request, or and still willing to sort of have a conversation about it, and so forth.
And I guess it comes back to the whole thing of being a projector, of like, you know, because you're going to provoke people whether you try to or not. It's not necessarily something you say. It's just going to be in your energy. Just by you walking into the room, someone could feel like anxious or provoked, or like, you know, just by you being in the space, that can happen. Now, the question then comes for like, okay, with your strategy of waiting to be invited, then it's because your value that you bring, the provocation can bring great value in the right setting. You know, it can bring the energy of some change to change things, to push things in a new direction.
Yeah.
Now, if you're not invited, then, you know, not only are you going to meet resistance, but then whatever change happens from your provocation, you're not going to get any credit or any reward from it.
True.
Whereas if you're a consultant that is valued, or, you know, whether it's a consultant or whatever the structure is, when you're invited, you can come into a situation and provoke some kind of change and get things happening in a different way that makes life better, that makes the organization more efficient, or creates a better situation. So knowing that you have that talent, you know, you can hold it, and then when it's invited, you can, you know, then you can really get paid for that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why it was what you described is really similar to what I've been doing, and in consulting for the companies, for certain business, you know, regarding Chinese stuff. And so sometimes I know that certain things is not going to work out. Like sometimes I feel that, you know, oh my gosh, it's not really the right time right now. Like what you're doing, you know, it's not working or whatever. But if I was trying to say whatever I say, you know, just say, oh, you know, that's not working, whatever, you know, they're just going to bounce off like what are you talking about, all that. So, you know, so that's why what is really makes sense of it, what I have been doing in my life and work wise was trying to wait for a certain moment and to be invited and just to say the truth and really, you know, what you need to do right now, and that's how we're going to do it, and that's what what are required in order to achieve it, and that's that basically that's it. And if you want to move forward or not, and you know, that's really honest opinions and suggestions, and so so that's why what we're trying to say really makes sense. Sometimes you just, the hardest part is just to wait. I think that is the hardest part.
Let's talk about waiting. Let's talk about waiting. I'd love to kind of dive into some of the basic projector things. So yeah, like, you know, like being recognized and waiting, and yeah, like it sounds like you're getting lots of chances to wait for the right timing. How is that? How does it feel? Like, how do you know when you've got recognition in the work that you do if you're consulting? Like, how do you, is it a feeling that you have, or does something you light up, or what is recognition like for you?
I think I have a lot of experiences, right? Some like clients, they recognize you, you know, you can feel it, you know, like you really feel that you're making some contributions or making some good change about that. But one client, they were kind of in a crisis situation and trying to, and then I'm able to help them to bring it up and make it up again, like that. It was really enlightening. That was, you know, you feel a sense of self-worth about that, and you can kind of feel that things are happening again and all that. And sometimes when it is not happening, it's just because that it's not really my fault. I mean, it's just I have done all my best, but it's just sometimes things are not in the right timing. Either the company is not ready, the people are not ready, not in the right mindset, whatever. It's not really my fault. And the difference is lies in the wisdom that you still, you know, you don't punish yourself. Like, you know, let's say I don't punish myself and say, oh, I'm useless, you know, I'm worthless, or that kind of things. And just trying to recognizing, you know, also testing and see, you know, like, and certain things, and over time and over years, you kind of have a sense of feeling that what's going to happen, and is it ready or not, and all that. And again, I think the hardest part is the waiting side. So for the waiting side, it was hardest part. So what you're gonna do during the waiting time, I think that is the wisdom, right? What you're doing in the waiting time, that you're not trying to push it, you know, make things happen, but at the same time you're still doing, you know, still positive, still to do certain preparation works, you know, a lot of these things, and trusting that will really bring into the work eventually. And I think that was really the things that I'm, you know, mastering, still mastering right now. Otherwise, you know, otherwise it was just a waste of time and all that. So it was a lot of mindset and wisdom involved into that waiting period, and how to make it worthwhile, as if it was maybe more like an investment, you know, like investing your time in preparating, and maybe, I don't know, maybe a better word for investment, you know, investing certain things that you will planting the seed and make it happen later on. So it's still learning.
I totally agree with what you're saying about the waiting. And I know for me, what's a really interesting contradiction is I can see a situation and I have very high level of clarity on what can be changed. But then I can be like really dumb in sensing the timing, you know, it's like in being able to see what needs to happen, crystal clear. But in feeling what's the right timing, like how can, you know, what's the right way to come into this situation. And what you described there links really beautifully with bitterness, because you know, for you, it sounded so clear. It was like, if you feel it's your job to make change, then if it's not the right timing, you can take that personally.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think as projectors that we operate in potential, you know, we have the potential to make a difference anytime that we have clarity.
Yeah, exactly.
However, whether we get the opportunity to express that, whether we get the opportunity to actually make a difference, that's out of our hands. We're not in control of that, because it's like,
we're not in control of that.
we're
And
really
I feel
not.
that, yeah, exactly.
Hard.
Especially, yeah, I know. I understand. Yeah, I
Well,
understand.
we get bitter, right? I mean, that's
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
like,
And I understand. And especially, I have a 21 line. I'm not sure if you're aware of that.
yeah, that's
21
an
line. Part of it is control. So if you look at my chart, I think maybe there's one line that I have a 21 line called control. So I think that is even harder for me. Like, if you look at my chart on the 21 line.
The 21, you've got 21-3 with the sun and with the north node. So you've got a double activation. Its nickname is the accountant, because you've got the king at 45 and the accountant at 21, but it's also the gate of the huntress, biting through, where the just are condemned to a futile confrontation with superior forces. In exaltation, it's got defeat as a survivable humiliation, often acceptable through the abuse of drugs and alcohol, unless one follows one's own material path, the breaking of the ego by superiors. It sounds like signing up to join the army and they break you down. But in exaltation, it's like you can survive that. You know, it's a tribal gate, right? 21. In detriment, it's total withdrawal, a lack of will for the material path in order to protect the ego. So it's some powerful forces there. How do you experience it, Sarah?
Is it a control line, or is it how you describe? I'm not sure how I can understand about it. I'm still learning human design, so I'm some part I don't. Yeah. Some part I know. I just know that it's a control line, but trying to control things, like trying to control things, exert control to have some sort of certainty. And is it something that you're saying? Like trying to exert some control about things?
It doesn't say that specifically, but it's to do with the ego and the will. And it's material. You know, the 21, the 45. The 45 is the king. The king and the accountant go together to make the channel of money. So it's to do with material resources.
Yeah. I see. So I mean, there's certain, because I'm doing marketing, digital marketing, and maybe sales related. So as if, you know, it kind of related to fighter 33.
It's gate of the huntress. So, I mean, the channel that you have, the 4426, that channel there is the channel of surrender, the design of a transmitter. And that one has the nickname of the sales channel. And now I have that one in red as well. That's the one that goes across from the spleen across to the will, to the ego. And it's basically about other people in the tribe listening to what you have to say. Yeah. Channel of surrender. Yeah. It's influencing the thinking of people in the tribe.
Tribal, yeah, tribal. It's really tribal, not very individualistic, like just thinking about me.
Correct.
Like, yeah, it's really about like us, like we, and I feel that it works when I, for example, in terms of sales, if I was just thinking about myself, you know, how much I earn and all that sometimes it's not going to work, you know, as if like it's as if like when you think about like us, like, you know, like how I gonna help for the group or for the company, organization, or for the whole, sometimes it kind of works better, like in terms
Yeah,
of
because sales is really about, you know, how can some change create benefit for everyone? Like how can you influence someone in a way that's going to be an improvement for them?
yeah,
Uh, so it's influencing the thinking in the tribe.
yeah,
You know, not the kind of. I mean, I always joke that sales is a bit like sex. You know, it has a bad reputation, and people do it really badly. If people do it well, it leaves everyone feeling good, and
yeah,
it's a positive thing. But if people do it badly, you know, you can wake up the next day feeling like, oh my God, what did I just buy? I didn't need that. You know, like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
if you're
exactly,
buying
yeah.
something in sales, you know, so.
Yeah, I also agree what your terms as well. So that's why sometimes, you know, it was like just switching the mindset, like about that 21 individual line to tribal line, and all that just trying to, like, as a service to other people and stuff. So and and as a projector, it's a little bit hard because you can't control things, like you can't really, you just trying your best out there, and you just need to sort of wait and see, and all that. I think that was the hardest part, but you know, that was the right way to do, you know, that's the right way to do, you know. It's just the waiting, that, you know, that you're gonna accept that there's gonna be waiting part.
I
I
mean,
think that
I've got a
was,
question for you, Sarah, with this waiting and with this invitation thing. Like with this particular channel, you know, for me, it's like actually when I look at the results, I'm actually very good at sales, but I never thought I was good at sales because it's red, it's unconscious. So it's kind of like I'm often not aware of how I'm influencing other people. So do you ever look back at situations and say, oh, wow, well, I influenced people without even realizing that I was influencing them. It just happened naturally.
I think you really say a good point, that you're not realizing, you're not forcing yourself. Maybe that's really the right word. Like you're not using your analytical mind to make it happen, you know, for the sake of make it happen. And I guess that's the things that you just show it naturally from your side, and that kind of naturally cooked up and happened. And so that's what I was also have similar experiences, because you know, as the free line, you're trying to try and error and all that, you know. If you say certain thing, yeah, is it work? If you say, if you have a different mentality, is it work? And from my experience, sometimes it's just you need to step back a little bit, and then just, you know, in the right time, you send a certain message to people. For example, a recent experience is that there was a virus in China, and that my potential client, I sent them a message, because at that time I really want people to say, because I see a lot of really bad things about this, and just say, I hope you know your families in China are well and all that, and if you have any questions, you feel free to reach me out. And I think that kind of message kind of like really cooked up and well, as if I haven't really thought about it. So sometimes it was like little things like that, you know, like little things that certain things you don't like, you know, as what we're trying to say, we're not forcing it to happen. You know, there's a fundamental differences of forcing it or chasing it to happen too, you know, just trying to, you know, as what you mentioned about, you just naturally, you know, as if subconsciously happen, and you kind of just follow that kind of rhythm of your body, you know, and that authority, because as if you're trusting it, it's already in your DNA already, part of yourself already. It was just, you don't need to force it to open. It will open when it needs to open.
It's just happening. It's like there's nothing to do. It's like
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. So I think I'm still learning that about it. I think my problem and the differences from you is that sometimes I'm just forcing it too hard. Sometime I'm not sure, is it the condition of my father, that he has a really big influence on me, that he always tell me, you know, you need to work hard, and that because he worked really hard and all that, that partly has some sort of influence from family history and all that. So that's why I was just trying to, you know, trying to wash all that conditioning, trying to find the right way that suits me, you know, and just learning.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because you were talking about how, as a woman, you're not expected to be too yang, too confrontational with the provocation. But this is a beautiful example of where, you know, that yin energy, that feminine energy, can be very influential without even trying to. And it's like, you know, it's not that you're trying to influence other people to do a certain thing. It's that just through you naturally being you and being relaxed.
Yeah, and being relaxed. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, what are you afraid will happen if you don't try? Like if you don't work hard or take initiative? Like what do you, what's the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah, I think, you know, is that the fear thing? A lot of people are saying that don't let the fear thing control you. So I'm just learning about this deeply, and I haven't really investigated why I have that source of fear in my mind. I'm not sure, is it subconsciously because of my father situation? Because my father, I'm not sure if because he has a cancer and all that, so I always like back in my mind that I have that sense of responsibility. You know, I'm not sure, like that Chinese culture, you know, you always have that sense of responsibility, you know, that kind of responsibility word is too heavy. Sorry?
Is it specifically to look after your parents, I think, is it?
It's just in case, you know, in the end they need my help, and whatever way that kind of conditioning in a society, you know, in Chinese society, it says that, you know, when your dad and mama or you as a child, as a kid, you're responsible. It is very Chinese culture. You're responsible for certain things. And that really strong. I think that's really strong in the Chinese culture, and that kind of not only family, basically everyone is saying the same thing, and you naturally just feel that, oh my gosh, you know, like that I sort of need to be responsible, or like you fear that you're not enough, like you're not like a good daughter, like, you know, you're not like a good daughter. I think that is maybe it's a subconscious thing, like back in my mind, that driving me all that, because just to, and that was really Chinese cultural context, like, oh, you're not doing enough, like that. So I'm just
I find it so powerful, Sarah, to listen back to this. You know, we're like, if you go to 1 hour 10 into this, when you get the recording, and just listen to yourself talking, because you're so clear. What you're sharing is so clear, you know, and you have these beliefs that are coming from your conditioning, that you can see them, like, I'm not good enough, I'm responsible, I have to be a good daughter. Like those, for example, those 3 beliefs can be very strong. And, you know, I use something called the work of Byron Katie, where you look at each one of those beliefs and you can start to just question that belief and say, well, oh, is that true? And it just starts to loosen the conditioning even more. But the first step is to notice it. And I think you're doing a great job of seeing that.
Yeah, I think I'm more relaxed now. I think maybe more relaxed than 5 years ago. And I think at that point, I think I'll be even more tense and using fear or those, you know, to drive me. Basically, that that was the key driving force for whatever I do, whatever I was behaving and all that. I was trying to realizing the differences, the fear driving you to do certain things, as if the non-fear, the joy and all that driving it.
And that is going to block that fear is totally going to block you being able to wait for invitation, because if you're waiting, but then inside your whole system, you're terrified because you feel you should be doing something. It's like, oh my God, this is the worst thing in the world, because I even though I don't have the energy, I should be doing something. I should be a good daughter. I'm not good enough. I should be trying harder. Then there's no way that you can be waiting. And so this is why human design starts with the not self. It starts with, who are you not? And at any time there's this fear, it's and any time you can hear the voice of your friends or your father or whoever saying something, that just creates that little bit of separation where you can then say, oh, hang on a minute, okay, here's some conditioning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think I'm trying really hard on that, because ultimately it's just trying to make things work, not trying to just, the intention is good, but, just understand how it works in my own way. I mean, just trying to accept that and avoid that the sort of fear and condition thing, the cultural society, whatever, that was really strong in my culture.
Yeah. I want to ask you a few questions about some projector things. So the first question I want to ask you is, do you remember, if you look back at your life, either before human design or after you discovered human design, are there any invitations that come into your sort of awareness or your memory of like, wow, that was a really good invitation?
Yeah, I think there are certain invitations that come before and after.
Is there one that you'd like to share that you could?
Yeah. I think I can share. I think there's a one. I can share the one that are bad or not inviting. I was forcing, and then after that I'm gonna share the invitation. I compare the differences in terms of emotions and all that. And so I can share. First of all, I'm gonna share with you the not self, the forcing it, trying to make things happen. So I think I can share with you before I got to know human design. After I got I come to London to study my master, all that. And after I finished my master, I think my father has a cancer and all that. And then that fear was driving me to do things, to make things happen, whatever way. I feel that it was so strong that even though at that time there's no really immediate financial needs, but that little thing that was driving you, like you need to take care of father, like you need to find a job, and all that. And it was that fear, that sending out so many CV and all that, and like really hard, because I was really hard on myself. So at the time was like crazy doing this, but it wasn't really working after that. I feel that the company, I'm not really, I don't feel like working in that company. Everything was not worked out and things like that. And so that was I wasn't feeling good. I was feeling anxious and not all of that thing. And I think when I started so my businesses and stuff, I would just try and see what happened. And I think my husband sort of encouraged me to just start it. Just, I think without his encouragement, I pretty much just be the same me. So I think one part is just thanks to him, like he said, oh, I'm going to support you during this period and all that. And I think I got a bit more safe and secure and all that. And then then and got a client. It was just at the right time, you know, got the clients and all that was worked out and really well, and helping them to transform, like to create digital transformations and all that. So it was working really well, and they kind of like works and all that, and their results and all that. So, and I think after that, I was just trying to comprehend like why they're so different. I mean, why there can be totally two different outcomes. Like one is I'm forcing it or whatever happened. I have no idea why that happened. I still don't know why that happened. You know, two scenarios, but it just happened. It's just the way it is. I can say it's the way it is. I don't know how to explain this. What happened? You can call it
Explained it
fate.
pretty clearly. The
Yeah.
one situation, you were forcing it, you were afraid, you had fear, you found out your father had cancer, and you were forcing this. You thought what you had to do was to work hard to get a good job, because that would give some kind of security if you weren't certain about your father's future.
Yeah.
When,
So
you know, you were somehow seen by your husband. Your husband was supporting you, encouraging you, inviting you maybe to do your own thing. And the client came with the right timing, and you were appreciated in doing work that was in alignment with you.
yeah. So I think exactly. There was a totally two different scenario. Totally, my body feels so different. One is like, you know, you feel so tense up, like, you know,
Yeah,
that as if you feel that, you know, like heavy on all
yeah.
this and stuff. And one is that, you know, you're kind of relaxed, you know, it doesn't really mean that you're like give up your life, right? I mean, it doesn't mean that you give up your life, but you're just trying to relax and just do whatever things that it takes, and wait that it's going to happen and trust that. But it's
And that's a
very,
really good point, isn't it? Because we think that if we relax, we're going to be lazy. But
yeah,
maybe if we relax, then energy can come through us and things can happen, and we
yeah,
can be animated just easily.
yeah, exactly. So I think that is two fundamental circumstances or mindset or situation or things, whatever, you know, if you trust it or not, you know, it's basically just that. And that it just yeah, I mean, just I think my biggest lesson for my life is just need to relax a bit more. Don't be like too, you know. That's like my biggest lesson in my life is just need to chill a little bit more. And my husband is really chill. I don't know why, but he was a complete different personality from me. I'm not sure why I'm born in July. He's born in March. I'm not sure, is it there's some differences in terms of the month, but I'm not sure, is it because of my family personality. My parents are really not rushing, but like really fast, like moving, like, oh, you need to do this, you do that, like all they
And
have
you
like,
have the cross of tension, so it's not surprising that there may be some tension in your system.
yeah. Do you have the same thing? Do you feel like something's bubbling in your mind or bubbling like?
I mean, I have two of the same gates. I carry
Yeah,
a lot of tension in my body.
yeah,
A friend of mine who also has a cross of tension. I think she's a generator. I found out, like, I'm not in close contact with her, but she feels she carries a lot of tension in her system. So, you know, and you've got the chat. You and I both have the channel of struggle. You've got the channel of judgment. So it's kind of, you know, it's like, it's just acknowledging, okay, maybe I've got some tension in my system.
yeah. I got some tension in my system. I don't know why, but it was so different from my husband. He was so chill. He was like, oh, just back off, you know, like, why don't you so worry, you know, like, you know, he was like, I will do whenever, you know, that timing comes. And I was like, no, you know, we need to get prepared and all that. And I was like, we're trying to discuss it with all that.
Is your
So
husband
yeah,
from Hong Kong also?
sorry.
Is your husband from Hong Kong culture as well?
He's from China, so
Right.
he's from the little province in China, so maybe a bit small, not as so fast moving. But Hong Kong is really
Because
fast
Hong
moving.
Kong's a very pressure place, isn't it? It's like busy, busy, busy.
Yeah, it is very pressure place. So I'm so lucky right now. I'm in UK a little bit. I don't need to be preconditioned by the environment. Otherwise, I think I'll be really more stressed, like be really totally stressed out or whatever it is.
I mean, I go to London and I find London stressful. So
Yes, I understand. But compared to Hong Kong, I mean,
believe me.
it was like, yeah, I mean, it's really a big, it's better compared to Hong Kong, especially from my culture, my families, you know, my mom, when I wake up, you know, like she's gonna tell me, you know, you're gonna do this and do that and do this and that and all this like stuff. I have to keep running or whatever things, you know, that was conditioned in my mind, basically. It is what would happen and what I
Yeah.
feel. And I feel that when I return to my home, my mom, I feel that every day, basically, you know, I feel that I live in my room. My mom come up, you know, and, you know, basically you need to do this and that and how long list to do and so forth. And so sometimes I still limit, you know, I plan in advance. I go back during December, some, you know, when I'm more relaxed, you know, and all that. And so I realize what it is, and I realize I have a new life for myself. You know, I'm not going back to live with my family. You know, I have a new life for myself, and I'm starting to recognizing this, starting to recognize that, you know, time to move on and, you know, like get married and have my own life and, you know, because I can't go back. I know that will be some crash, like serious crash, going back, that I also experienced. So that's why it was so clear that I know at the time I'm ready to marry, like I'm ready to, you know, move on and live a life. And that was a time, well, that was the year I got to know human design. I think maybe I got to know human design in February. After a whole long of consideration, I was in Hong Kong, back to living with my family and all that. I sort of decided, you know, around August and around October, decided, you know, my husband finally got his UK resident sort out, and I think there's, you know, I can move back to UK again, and I know that it's time to, you know, like move on, like, you know, like not living with my family. So it was quite clear, although it's not really straightforward. A lot of trial and error, like, you know, it's not like just straight, like as if like my brother, you know, like that's straight. So a lot of trial and error like that.
And you also have that very unique perspective, don't you? Because you have like one foot in Hong Kong, understanding that culture, and then one foot here, understanding the, you know, being in the culture in London. And it's like, you know, they're both cities, but you can, you know, you're standing across both of those different cultures. So, you know, and going back and forth. So I get a feeling like in the future, you're going to be in a very good position to help others.
Yeah, I feel that especially for Chinese women, like I think a lot of the conditions that they need, their parents want them to study business, you know, medicine, lawyer, and all that, and basically a lot of them actually, you know, want to study art and all these sort of things, and you have to marry, you know, when you're 25 years old, otherwise your life going to be stuck, you know, it's the end of the world. And if you don't marry after 35, you basically just you know, you're that, like you can't find a good man. There's lots of like all these condition things in Chinese culture, especially for women, that woman gender was really tough, like that. Basically, oh, you need to get married and, you know, have a baby and all that, you know, get a good job and all this sort of condition thing imposed. I think for Hong Kong is slightly better, but for China is even, you know, in rural provinces, I think that was really, really, really tough, like really traditional, still that kind of mindset. Like, and I think a lot of women, Chinese women, struggling about that, and especially in a Chinese society. And as you say, right, I also live in UK. I got to know a bit the Western culture, the European culture, whatever. Woman, you know, like it's not that hard on yourself, right? Like that. I didn't hear when I'm in UK. I didn't hear that people are saying, oh, if you're not married in 35, before 35 years old, you're dead. Like, you know, no man likes you, whatever. But that kind of voices, you know, was like in China, you basically just, your mom is telling you that, your dad is telling you that, your friends are telling you that. Everyone, the media basically say, oh, you're 38, 5 years old, you're too old. Like, you're basically too old. No one's going to like you.
Crazy, because 35 is like, you know, for most people, they're not even halfway through life, right?
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of these women just still trying to experience what life it is, because to be very honest, in the Chinese culture society, during the high school period, you basically just study. Like for my high school period, I know nothing about society. I know nothing. All I know, I'm a machine. I'm a machine who study to get good grades. So I don't have other social life. I'm not trained to know what's happening outside book. I only know book. That's it. So there's still a lot. When I come to UK, still learning a lot how to take care of myself, cook, you know, all these basic things. But you know that I assume you guys learn earlier than us, that we study. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we just study basically, and like a machine. And a lot of these women or men or whatever you call it, just after that, they just know a little bit about life, and
Right.
then strictly they need to jump in and get a job and do all these things, hurry, you know, like, oh, like get a job, get a house and mortgage and all this. So I think there's a lot of movement, a lot of change in a Chinese society. I think people are kind of aware, you know, especially when they study in the West and going back, and especially in that, a lot of changes. So it was just a lot of changing, a lot of, I can see there was a lot of awakening and changing.
I have a lot of Chinese students who are like 18 to 20 who come to stay on my boat when I'm in Bath.
Mm.
And I actually find that the young Chinese people that come to visit, I mean, they're probably not typical, because maybe a typical Chinese person wouldn't stay on a weird boat, you know. But the ones that I meet, I find them very open-minded, actually. I find them very, very real, very adventurous. And, you know, maybe it's because they're in a different country.
Yeah.
But compared to the young English people, I find the English people much more kind of, they're not so focused. I think the Chinese people are very focused on the study, but as far as enjoying an experience and trying something different, I feel like the Chinese guests that I have feel very open to me.
Yeah, I can resonate to what you say, because for China, there's just one strict way of one thinking, really strict, really, you know, it's a calmness in mainland China. So people are really curious about, okay, when I get out of China, what it is.
What else is out there? Like, what's going on?
what's going on really. Like, yeah, I mean, I also find it really curious about, okay, after I left Hong Kong, what's going on? Like, what's people thinking? Why, how is it different from us? And why you say different things and when you think different things? It was a complete like exploration. So I think people are getting very open-minded to just try to absorb a lot of information from the West and all
And
that.
I think it's also an effect of like when you're over, you know, when you're out of your usual context, your eyes are more open, you're more, you know, before I went to Australia, I thought that all Australians were very out there, very friendly, very adventurous, very like, you know, because the Australians that I met when they were traveling were always very, very, you know, interested in all sorts of things. And then when I went to live in Australia for 10 years, I found that in Sydney, it's quite a conservative place in many ways. Like, it's very pro-entrepreneur, much more than England, you know, to encourage you to try a business or something. But actually, in terms of people's values, like, people were quite conservative. So maybe it's the effect of, you know, when you travel to a different country, I think the more difference there is in culture, the more open-minded people are to see how it is. But I mean, I just think it's a really interesting time with you know, I think China's opened up in the last 10, 20 years. And yeah, I mean, it's an interesting time right now with the medical things that are going on. Has that affected you personally?
You mean the virus? You mean the
Yeah,
virus?
the thing that I mean, who knows what's really going on, but how's it affected you?
How is it affecting me? Well, it is affecting. I mean, well, it was a long story, you know, that virus thing, you know, from like January, mid-January, it was starting to blow up, but then actually in December, Chinese Wuhan doctor, I think you see the news from BBC as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious in how, I mean, I guess what I'm interested in is how it affects you personally. I mean, I know here in Thailand, in Phuket, a lot of companies that depend on Chinese tourists are, you know, having to close because all the Chinese guests have cancelled. But yeah.
Yeah, I think business, yeah, I mean, of course, it might have if it have some initial effect for the business, because sometimes the companies, they may freak out a little bit and they might not want to spend it right now, and want to wait and see attitude for maybe two, 3 months when the situation become better. Yeah, and I think it does have some effect. It does have some psychological impact, because human is an animal that they think about the bad things as if that fear or that, you know, scarcity. I think it's psychologically there are have some effect. So on myself as well. So that's why I was trying to think like, okay, you know, if it is happening to everyone, then I think right now everyone is in the same situation, and I mean, like, I need to think like, okay, how I can take this time and opportunity to try to learn certain things or do certain things that when it kind of recover, then you know, like as if it will be a bounce back, and trying to think about all this.
I guess there's going to be a lot of opportunities, you know, always with where there's a challenge in a business sense. You know, I know that airlines and people, I know people in England have had guests cancel as well who are hosting. So yeah, I think you're right. I think there's going to be an opportunity, many opportunities created, you know, when the time comes.
Yeah, and I think the other opportunity is the digitalization. Other people will move from offline to online, so they will start to think ahead. You know, in the future, right? If there's another virus situation, then we start to better think forward. You know, long term way. So I think it was a good time to think about long term in this situation. So rather than, let's say, rather than freaking out or like paralyzing and doing nothing, or like disrupting your work and your mind and your health, and just take this opportunity to think long term, planning.
I mean, it comes back to what you were saying about fear. That doesn't help to take action from fear. And I guess that that's what you're saying, is like the opportunity, if people aren't traveling with business, maybe there's the opportunity to help people to have meetings in the virtual space. I don't know. Sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. Virtual space, online meeting, everything go to online right now. It doesn't have to be offline. Even in China, people are buying food. They don't touch each other. The people kind of put a. They're very clever. They put a thing that so that the food, that comes out, and that you don't need to touch, you don't need to put hands, and that people pick up, and that you don't need to have facial contact, and people are more aware of that. I think that helps people to be more trusting other people, even though you don't need to meet. You don't need me to do business. We can do business online, and people sell clothes on WeChat, online. It's just still happening, people. One of the friends said, oh, our business is still going on. It's just that we don't need to touch each other. We don't need to see each other. Everything is done, on WhatsApp or whatever, in WeChat. Basically, it's a Chinese version of
Right.
WhatsApp. Everything you can send. I send you the photo. If you like it, you send me the money. Buy it. Done. We don't see each other. Very straightforward. So people are embracing that mindset, and
I mean, not many people have mentioned it, but also, I mean, all the flights that are being cancelled. If someone cares about carbon footprint, there's definitely going to be a reduction in. I'm not sure of the truth of all that scenario, but definitely there's less fuel being burnt, with less flights being taken around. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. But I'm going to share this video when we post it. I'm going to share it with a friend of mine who was doing some work with Chinese women in Bali, actually. Because beyond even beyond anything to do with being a projector, I think you've shared some really powerful insight around some of the conditioning that happens. That I imagine a lot of women from that culture will resonate with that. So I wanted to thank you for just sharing really honestly about that. It's fascinating to see a window into another culture like that.
So thank you for inviting me. Thank you for giving me the chance to share how it is different. So when I share it, I think everything become more clear now, and it's also good to have your perspective feedback as well. So that was really good interactions.
Beautiful. I've learned through doing these interviews that often it's actually, sometimes I have things to say and I feel like you that was useful and it was part of what flowed. But I feel like just actually the projector aura, we're here to guide others, but we don't even have to actually do anything, like just having the invitation, having the space, Raluca's holding the space as well, and just having a space where you can share your insights. And I'd be very interested to know when you watch the video back, like how it is, because I think you might surprise yourself in the clarity that you're communicating. I think when you listen back to it, you will be pleasantly surprised with how clear you are in what you've shared.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you can't see yourself quite clearly without saying it or having this opportunity. Otherwise, everything keeps inside of you.
It's the projector thing. We're good at seeing other people, right?
Exactly.
We're all about the other person.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it was good. I can learn about myself a lot, and I think like and you're a projector as well, so I can kind of see how it kind of resonate to each other, as well as a common theme. So that's why you're not alone. You don't feel like you're alone or you're a freak or whatever it is. And being comfortable as part of your journey and how to learn from it, learn from these experiences.
Yeah, because we are different. We are different as projectors, and it's very powerful. And that's what people like about these calls, is that we get to, there are going to be people who resonate with different parts or all of what you're saying in different ways. So, and you're right, we have a lot of similarities between my chart and your chart. So
yeah, exactly. And the 30, 39, 33 chart, yeah, that lines resonate. So I think it was yes, we have some similarities as obviously.
We also, I don't know if Raluca can do it very easily to show the composite chart, but we also have, we also bridge each other's split, right? Because you've got gate 48, the gate of depth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've got the gate of skill. So we connect the throat to the spleen. So the two gates come together to make the channel of talent.
Oh, so you mean I'm really deaf and you are really skillful in communicating?
You've got the depth, and the well, and I've got 16, which is the gate of skill, and together they come together to make the channel of talent.
Oh, interesting. What kind of talent? Like, I mean, how they can combine together to make
electromagnetics. I mean, you also have gate 57, and you also have gate 45. They are also bridge gates for you. But for me, I imagine that they're like two kind of hard. They're like two tentacles from an octopus that kind of like ding, they connect. And then there's that connection. And it's interesting because often the bridge gates are like a manifested channel, or they're a generated channel. But for us, it's a projected channel. The 16, 48. Actually, it does connect it gets a bit complicated, but we bridge each other's splits, and there's something in that where it can be a very powerful connection when two people come together and bridge each other's split like that.
I see. That's very interesting. So that's why I feel like we have a sense of momentum during our conversation. I think you get me really clear, and I communicate it really clear, and you understand it. So there's a sense of connection.
Yeah. Yeah, and we see each other as projectors, but I think you're right. I think over and above that, there's the connection between the two charts, which I might create the connection chart so we can see that, and then I'll post that somewhere so people can check it out.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. Nice one.
Yeah, it was great talking to you.
Likewise, Sarah, and it was really nice the way that you suggested that we have a chat. So that was, it worked really well, because I decided to kind of stop pushing it, Raluca and I, to stop kind of trying to push the interviews and just see what happens. So that's been great.
Yeah, it was great. So yeah, I think, you never know what happens. So I think
who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Part of it is to be open-minded, being a projector, like the flow, the kind of relax rather than forcing it, right? So that was
right.
So that was part of it. I was being also open-minded as well. Part of it also implies that when you're not forcing for one direction, that means you're being more open-minded about things around you and things like that. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, and for anyone else who's watching this as well, I will be putting a link down there in the comments, and I'm close to having the pilot ready. So anyone who's interested in doing a course that is about the basics of being a projector, it's about moving from bitterness in the not self towards success. And there will be a link in the comments down below when we publish this video, so anyone watching this can check that out. And if that's something that's of interest, it's a very simple course in the basics of being a projector. So thank you so much, Sarah. I hope you have a sweet day.
Yes.
We will let me know how you enjoy the replay. I think you're going to really enjoy it. But,
yeah, we will
be in touch.
look for the video, and hope to have a catch up with you guys.
Yeah, and if you want me to link anything with your work or anything, just send me the links through, and we'll put that in. If there's any links you want me to put in.
Okay, sure.
Beautiful, Sarah.
Yes. Yes.
Go well.
Yes. Well. Bye.
Bye.